Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming. Larry told me on the hallway that I'm the chairman, I can do what I want, so I'm gonna recess and go outside and have this meeting, but that would be too tempting to just keep going, and as Matt said, go sit under a shade tree. But thanks for coming to the May 8th meeting of the TTCC at KIPTA. First, we'll do introductions. Of course, you know I'm Jim Urban, Planning Director, Oldham County.
I'm Tom Long with KYTC District 5 Planning.
Tony Higdon with KYTC Central Office Planning.
Arthur Jones, City Engineer for Shepherdsville.
Curtis Hockenberry, Shepherdsville Mayor.
Barry Armstrong, City of Mount Washington.
Keith Griffey, Board Hall.
Bradley Coombs, sitting in for Michelle King with the Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District.
Ryan Dixon, Clark County.
Ida Fulton, Scott.
Matt McGay, Jeffersontown.
Jim Silliman, Oldham County.
Brittany Montgomery, Town of Clarksville.
Ashley Tenius, Kipta. Amanda Dethridge with Kipta.
Andy Rush, Kipta. David Burton, McVale, Kipta.
Elizabeth Park with Kipta. Sarah Bear, Kipta.
Keith Dameron, American Engineers Incorporated.
Gary Valentine, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, out of State Highway Engineer's Office.
Chris Long, Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, Local District.
Mike Hill, Lockheed Group.
Adam Forsyth, Kipta.
Ricky Bowles, Round Mark.
Ashley Woods, Bridge Mobility Council.
Great. Well, again, thanks everybody for coming. The first order of business is the April 10th TTCC meeting minutes, and action is requested. If there's anybody that has read them and finds them in good order, I appreciate a motion to approve. Motion to approve, second. Get that? Okay. Any comments or questions? There being none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes say aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Larry, the Transportation Policy Committee report.
Yes, sir. The Policy Committee met on April 25th and carried forward everything that this body had proposed for approval, including changes to the dedicated funding in Kentucky, and administrative modifications were presented. They approved the UPWP, and we heard from TARC, from Ms. Kopik, about the comprehensive operational analysis and long-range plan that they are developing. And we also heard about the status of the Metropolitan Transportation Plan and the TIP update.
Great.
That concludes the report.
Thank you. Any comments or anything about the Policy Committee report? Okay, next item is public comment. Anybody here from the public that wants to address the TTCC this afternoon? There being none, we'll go ahead and move on to the Transportation Cabinet's presentation on iMove Kentucky. Chris and Gary.
Thank you all. Good afternoon. Better over here, Larry? Or
Anywhere you like.
Oh, cool. All right, well, thank you all very much for Larry inviting me and Gary to come. Gary Valentine's with me at the State Highway Engineer's Office today. And we're going to do just some discussion on the iMove project that you may have been hearing about on the news and some of the papers. So right now, we have some project objectives that come along with this project. The first one is the budget. It's going to be a $180 million budget going forward. We hope with that money we'll be able to improve the public safety, relieve congestion throughout these three corridors, which, you know, all three of these, I-64, I-265, and I-71, are heavily traveled commuter and freight corridors. And then going along with that, three of these four projects that we're going to talk about here in just a minute rank very highly in our shift model that we currently have for planning. Most of them rank in the top between 1 and 6, but three of them, the lowest one out of the three ranks at number 12 in the program. And we're going to be using a variable scope best value procurement method on this project, and I'll get into that in just a minute and how that differs from a traditional design build project. So for this, the three interstates are the I-265, I-71, and I-64 corridors. It is just a rough schematic of the projects that was put together to make up this I Move Kentucky project. There were 4 projects that were combined into a design build. The first one being the widening and reconstruction of I-71 from the Gene Snyder out to Kentucky 329. The second one being modifications of CD lane system at I-71 and the Gene Snyder interchange. The third one is the widening of the Gene Snyder from Taylorsville Road up to I-71 and the Gene Snyder interchange at the top. And the fourth one is the reconstruction of the I-64 Gene Snyder I-265 interchange. So the first one of those projects is the I-71 intersection CD lane project. So for the I-61 section, our current plan is to widen I-71 to the center to make 6 lanes in each direction, going up to Kentucky 329 in Oldham County. Right now, that stretch of road has about 59,000 vehicles per day on it. All of these projects are in different phases of design currently. Some of these are farther along than others. The I-71 and the CD lane part of this are the sections that are the farthest along in this process. And KYT estimates that those plans are about 80% complete currently for the I-71 and the CD components of the project. The collector distributor on the southbound side of I-71 will help improve safety and ease ramp movements throughout the intersection. Currently that intersection, those movements have about 25,000 vehicles per day. And we do have a milestone completion date for the CD operation, and that is December 31st of 2020. And I think, Larry, that was due to air quality.
Yes.
Right. So that is one milestone that we have in the project that we have made known to all the teams that are possible proposers on this project, and that is a date that we plan to meet. This is just a rough schematic of what we think it'll look like. This is from the 80% plans. Of course, design build teams, we're going to encourage the alternative technical concepts throughout this project for innovation and efficiencies and cost savings. But for the most part, we feel that this will be what we end up with in the end. It'll have a CD lane coming off the ramp heading from I-71 south to I-265 north, and have a collector distributor lane with the clover leaves, then back out on the 71 south. This is a section of the I-71 widening. I apologize, the picture is small, but the area is large, and I couldn't make it any bigger for the slideshow. And this goes from the Gene Snyder for 71 all the way up to Kentucky 329 in Oldham County. The next portion of this is the Gene Snyder widening. Once again on this, we expect to add a center lane in both directions to create a total of 6 lanes between Taylorsville Road and Interstate 71. So current traffic on volume is about 88,000 cars per day. We estimate the plans are close to 50% complete, and this has a shift ranking of number 1 in the state. So this is the number 1 project in the state of Kentucky according to the shift system. Just a brief map on that. This is kind of oriented funny. Taylorsville Road would be on your left, and 71 would be on your right. The last component of this project, main project, and we'll talk about how that works here in a minute, is the 64 and I-265 interchange. And this will be pretty much a complete reconstruction. There will be maybe a ramp or 2 that stays, but for the most part, we envision that this entire intersection will be reconstructed to a much better traffic flow and safety issues that we currently have now. Currently, this intersection has about 94,000 vehicles per day that travel through it. So this is by far the largest travel group of any of the projects that we're looking at. We did go on a couple of months months ago with preliminary engineering and preliminary line and grade, and alternate 3B was chosen for that. And I think there should be a press release coming out in the next week or so that will go over what concept was chosen for that. That concept was chosen. It completes all the factors that we really want: the safety, the flow of traffic, but it also helps to minimize our right-of-way and some utility relocations in the area. There's definitely some high-power transmission lines and stuff that we would like to avoid, and this concept helps to do that. So that's what we think right now it's going to look like by our concept. It's a little odd. They call it a partial turbine instead of like a clover leaf. To the right-hand side of the screen, we actually have two bridges that will go over I-64 currently, and then the north and the south side of the Gene Snyder has a type of tunnel structure that will go under the Gene Snyder to tie all those in together. And this runs up towards Shelbyville Road to the north, and one of the lanes will finally end to the west side at Blankenbecker Parkway. So it will travel more than the current area that it's currently in, and will go all the way close to Shelbyville Road, and then all the way up on the ramps for Blankenbecker Parkway. So with part of this project, the administration has been very good over the last several years at wanting to take care of what we currently have, and this project is no different. They have asked us in my I Move Kentucky to help maintain our existing infrastructure, and that has become a priority of the project. So with that, we have some items that we're going to incorporate into the design build plan for the project. And some of those are patching of the existing concrete along some of the I-265 corridor. A lot of that is original concrete from Shelbyville Road north, and a lot of it's in very good shape. But it does need a little bit of love. So we plan to do some of that. We plan to rehab some of the existing asphalt pavement along I-265, and those are mostly from the Taylorsville Road area to the Shelbyville Road area. We have a lot of bridge maintenance that we would like to get done. Bridges need joints, some overlays, and some of those factors, and we're incorporating that into the proposal as well. We will widen existing bridges as needed for the project. Several of the bridges will need to be widened to incorporate the center lane in each direction. And then with that, we've talked with Central Office Traffic and Trimark and some others, and we are going to try to upgrade and replacement of lighting and ITS components of their system that would either have to be moved or might be in the way of the current widening. So we're working with them currently to get those scopes set up for the lighting and the ITS upgrades and relocations. This project does have noise barrier walls that goes along with it. Right now we have 12 different walls set up on the project. 4 along I-71, 3 along the I-64 interchange, and most of those are actually west of the interchange heading up between the Gene Snyder and Blankenbecker Parkway, and then 5 along the I-265 corridor itself, mostly from I-64 north toward Westport Road. We have done our public meetings on each of those walls for the affected neighborhoods. And I don't know if you all have seen or drove that way lately, but currently there are drill rigs sitting out on I-64 currently doing the geotechnical work to help assist in those designs for the contractors. Help give them as much information as they can to do their wall designs on. So this is our current procurement schedule. It is aggressive. We do understand that. The contractors, we met with them yesterday, and they told us they thought it was aggressive, and we said we agree. We agree it's an aggressive schedule, but we think you all can make it. So we issued the RFQ, the request for qualifications, on April the 26th, the day after the KIPTA amendment. Yesterday, on May 7th, we had our pre-proposal meeting. Our qualifications are due back on May the 20th. We plan to shortlist teams on May 30th. And then the next day, on May 31st, we will issue the draft ITP to the teams for the RFP process. We will do the ATC process that begins in mid-June and continues into September, October. And then in October, we'll get our technical proposals from the teams. And then a week later, we'll get our variable scope from the teams. And I'll explain how those two components are going to work. And it's different than a price proposal. It could have a price function if needed. And then we hope to have the project awarded on Halloween of this year. So we're going to use a variable scope method. It's actually called a variable scope best value procurement method. And that is a little different than normal design builds. Normally in a design build, we'll give them a package that we expect to be completed, which would be like the 4 interstate systems. We give it out to them, and then they give us a price at the end that says, we think we can do that for, I know your budget is 180, but we think we can do it for 160. So in this project, what we're actually going to do is say, for the most part, we're kind of fixing the budget at 180. And we want you to do all the scope packages. We want you to do the base, the 4 interstates, the pavement rehab, the bridge maintenance, the lighting and the ITS components. And then on top of that, the district has went through and prioritized other projects that touch that corridor that it would be an overall help to the district and to the traveling public. So the way they will bid that is they will bid their technical proposals, and then a week later they'll give us a sheet, and we'll have a line of items, and they check how far they think they can make it on the $180 million budget. So those items will only be included as concepts only. We do not have any plans prepared for those items, those additional scope items. The teams will have to do design engineering to incorporate those scope items into the project. And just some examples of those would be maybe extending I-71 a little further north. Right now, we're currently stopping at the south side ramps at Kentucky 329, and maybe taking that all the way through the Kentucky 329 intersection, or maybe even a little further north if that's what they want to look at. Another one would be some ramp capacity enhancements at selected locations. One of those being Blakenbecker Parkway. With the project, we'll have a lane dropping there, so we'll have 2 lanes coming up the ramp. Originally, right now, the base package has a dedicated right and a dedicated left. One of the enhancements for the scope would be to add a dual left and still keep the dedicated right. So some capacity, and there's several of those all through the corridor that could be looked at. Just basic scoring criteria. This is how we're going to do the RFQ, and these are just the qualifications for like most design projects. We're getting a qualifications package that we will shortlist from, and then we will start discussing with the teams and getting their scope packages together. KYTC is responsible for obtaining all right-of-way on the currently identified project. With that, we have 4 parcels we're looking at along the corridor. We have 2 parcels along the I-64 and I-265 interchange. And we have 2 parcels along the I-71 widening section. All of those are currently in the process and should be procured in the near future. And we don't expect that any of those right-of-way will hamper the potential schedule of the design-build teams. There will be a little bit of utility location and some railroad coordination to do. Most of the project, besides the 4 parcels we just mentioned, will be contained within the existing footprint of the current system. There will be some minor utility locations throughout. Like I said, we have looked through items on the interchange, trying to avoid the transmission lines, LG&E, and others. But the teams will be responsible for those utility relocations, and they will need to coordinate with those companies to help facilitate design and pay for those relocations. The DB teams will also help coordinate with KYTC and the rail facilities, the same as for the utilities. Currently, KYTC has already discussed utility and rail impacts with both of those entities and all that might have potential conflicts. And hopefully as soon as the teams get shortlisted, we'll have a meeting with the teams and the affected groups to help get the coordination started on those items. So that's the main part of the project. What questions you all might have?
You said you're doing geotech on the walls, or the walls going to go in first? Noise walls?
No.
Okay.
We don't have anything that says the noise walls will have to go in first. We assume that the noise walls might go in during the winter periods over the years, just because that's something that they can work on without having to do concrete and asphalt. All right, well, thank you. Oh, yes, ma'am.
I have two questions. Could you talk a little bit about project consideration, having 3 lanes outside of the Gene Snyder North and then 2 lanes Gene Snyder to town? And was there any multimodal consideration of public transportation solutions or anything else as part of the project consideration?
3 lanes north and 2 lanes.
The capacity
Inside.
basically between Gene Snyder and downtown, we will be loading high number of lanes to the interchange and further downtown.
71.
Exactly.
Right.
How does
Gary,
it-
you want to mention that?
There is another project to look at improving I-71 between, I guess, 71 coming out of Kennedy interchange, Frankfurt Avenue is 3 lanes, goes down to 2 there. So from there out to the Snyder Freeway, there is another project that will be being looked at. It's not a part of this design build package. As far as multimodal, any environmental document takes that into consideration. And I'm certain, I can't speak specifically on this, but I'm certain there was a look at multimodal component in the environmental document for the 71 improvements within the metro area.
And what was the
Oh,
conclusion?
the result, we needed additional lane in each direction on I-71. I mean, that was the alternative that came out of the environmental process, because there is an approved environmental document on each of these.
But there was no recommendation for public transit or anything?
It was not.
Because when we take the median for these improvements, we preclude any other transit mode to be implemented. Was there consideration of buses on shoulders or HOV lanes?
I'll have to look at that and get back with you on specifics with what was looked
It'd
at.
be good to know that, because this is a major undertaking probably for decades for this region. And with multimodal consideration and keep them moving towards also other solutions, at least it would be good to know what was behind this decision.
Sure.
Thank you. What is the timing on the 71 inside Gene Snyder?
I'm not sure of the timing of the construction phase. The design phase will start later this year.
Yes, sir.
You talked about the main components of the iMove project, but then you talked about the possibility of other projects being introduced through the
Through the best value
best value.
package, yes, sir.
Do you know the timeframe of when they might start identifying or have those projects identified?
Well, they have to have the projects identified by the October 15th date, because that's when that is when the technical will come in. And then October 22nd, they will actually give us their sheet saying that we plan to get so far down the list for those added scope. And that will be a point component added to their technical score to help determine who will be the selected team. So I would say probably on October 31st or early November, there will be a press release announcing the design build team, and then probably what has made the actual project scope to that point beyond the base package.
Are the ones that are, in line, or whatever you say, are those existing highway plan projects?
No. Some are, some aren't, but for the most part, they're more of ramp considerations onto the existing corridor.
Typically, these things would be done as a part of like I-265 widening. That would have been done in past history, but during the days of flexible solutions and trying to budget things, they were not included as a part of the phasing package.
I guess I'll ask if you all just be sure to let us know, as soon as possible, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever that might be, November 1st, perhaps, I guess. Just to know what to expect in terms of those, not as major, but still sometimes significant projects.
I asked this question to you all, how is that typically handled? It's not an additional project, we just see it as add-on to the 265 widening.
Yeah.
We don't see the addition of a ramp to the Blackman Baker interchange
Four.
5I-64 interchange project that will add it onto it. So how, from your all's perspective,
I suppose that's what it would be. I mean, it's probably what it's gonna have to be, frankly. You know, there's one of the projects gonna be amended here later this summer, happens to be the, Brook and Jefferson Street interchange downtown, and I guess Metro has a different preferred alternative than they had previously. And that has more changes than the previous one did, more in number, I don't know, in terms of significance. So it's just perhaps a change in scope, so, what we always request is just the most current idea that you have, working. I mean, you know, within reason, I guess. You don't need to change it today and then again tomorrow.
All of the potential projects, I can tell you, touch the current base package. So there's nothing that skips an area or goes to a different area. All of them are either on a ramp, one of the existing exits now, or at the end of, like possibly extending 71 a little farther north, at the end of the current base package. So there won't be any gaps anywhere where
we can share with you what those are, what potentially may be added now.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can.
Well, yeah, we do need to know, because if it is a major change to the scope of the project that we already have in our documentation, it's going to have to be reflected some way.
Right.
But if it's changing the ramp from the configuration, for instance, at 64, changing that configuration, probably not.
Gotcha.
So
I mean, I can say, like, one of the proposed something like this would be like somewhere where there's a dual left turn now coming off of a ramp. We may add, if the surface street allows for 3 lanes, we may try to make it a triple left instead of a dual left. Those type of projects.
And those are the ones that we would really need to see.
Sure.
Because if it's not within the scope of the existing project, and you're reaching out to do something else, if it's not already in the plan, and you're moving it forward, for instance, you're changing the build year, something out of the ordinary, something other than what's already in place for these projects
I'll be happy
right now.
to send you. I'll send you that with.
Whenever you know, so we can make sure that we take care of it.
That list of projects, however far down the list they get, the expectation is those would be completed by the same.
November,
same timeline.
right now the current date is November 1st of 2023.
Okay. So it's not as if they're gonna do those in 2024 and 2025.
Right. No, all of that has to be taken into the current completion date.
I think that would make things a bit simpler for us.
Yeah. Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Next item is proposed amendments to the MPO planning documents. Nick?
Yes, thank you. Pull this presentation up here. All right. Today I'm presenting, this is Amendment 12 of the Horizon 2035 Metropolitan Transportation Plan. That's our current long-range plan. And Amendment 5 of our current fiscal year 2018 to 2021 Transportation Improvement Program. This is one of 2 amendments that we're doing this summer in anticipation of our upcoming lapse grace period as part of the MTP. This is a fairly small amendment. I will orient you to the documents that came submitted to you in your packet. You should find a memo that was sent out to all of the libraries. Our public comment period is underway right now. You'll also find two pages that include the 4 projects that I'm going to discuss today. Notes from our interagency consultation conference call, which is something we have to do when we do our amendments. We have to consult with Federal Highways, Federal Transit, EPA, various state transportation and air quality agencies as well. So there's notes about that discussion. And that's pretty much it in terms of the packet. So a little background on the projects that are included in this amendment. These all stem from a recent announcement from the Cabinet that there are 4 congestion mitigation air quality projects known as CMAQ. I think you guys all are aware of that program. 4 of the projects that were awarded are here in the KIPTA region. All 4 of the projects, based on the IAC call that we had, are considered exempt projects, which means they will likely contribute to the attainment or maintenance of the current air quality in our region. and therefore no air quality analysis or no air quality conformity analysis was needed. So the 4 projects that are included in this amendment, the first one is a Louisville Metro project. It's essentially an Intelligent Transportation Systems project, ITS, called Connection 21. They're going to be doing expansion of fiber communications, upgrading traffic signal controllers, and this is going to be targeted towards the heavily trafficked corridors in Jefferson County. There's one KYTC project. This is I-71 northbound at Kentucky 53. The current proposal is to widen that exit ramp from 1 to 2 lanes, adding left and right dual turn lanes, including an installation of a signal system or traffic signal system there, as well as lane striping and wayfinding signs. And then we've got 2 projects that were awarded to TARC, funds that were awarded to TARC for 2 projects. One being the outer loop circulator. This is a new circulator that will essentially provide a lot of workforce employment transportation. There'll be 8 peak afternoon and 8 peak morning trips during the week, weekdays I should say. And it'll go from Iroquois Park to Renaissance Business Park, Commerce Crossings, and traverse the National Turnpike, Outer Loop, and Preston Highway. It'll connect also to 4 other routes, and those routes are detailed in the projects table that I included in the packet. And then finally, KYTC did award funds for TARC to buy 2 additional battery charged electric buses, as well as 2 depot chargers. I can answer any questions if anyone has any regarding these 4 projects. If not, I'll move on to the timeline of this amendment. Okay. So right now we're all the way into obviously TTCC recommendation. The public comment period is open until the 14th. So we have received some comments. We had our public open house on Monday. We received comments. The only ones relevant to this amendment were of positive nature, but all of those comments that we received will be submitted to the TPC prior to them taking action, so they have all the information that we have. An email has already gone out to them with the initial comments, but anything that we receive between now and the 14th will be resubmitted to the TPC prior to the May 23rd meeting. And then we will request federal approval of that following TPC, the TPC meeting, and hopefully have that well before the July 24th deadline. Today, essentially, the actions are two things. We got to take them step by step. First, we need action to recommend approval of Amendment 12 to the Horizon 2035 MTP.
Okay, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any discussion about the recommendation for the Horizon 2035 MTP? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great.
May I ask who made the motion? I did not see.
Oh, I made a second.
You made the second. It was Jim. Okay. Thank you.
And then the second action that's being requested by staff is to recommend approval of Amendment 5 to the fiscal year 2018 to 21 TIP.
Is there a motion?
Thanks.
Second, did you get that? Yep. Motion and a second for the TIP. Any discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Nick. Nothing else?
That is it for me.
Okay, thanks. The next item is the U.S. Census Participation Statistical Area Boundary Program, PSAP.
PSAP. Call me PSAP. I'm here to give you all just an update of our PSAP program. I was up here probably, January or February, kind of introducing you all to this process. And today is just a status update, tell you where we are, and frankly, we're about done. Okay, so for those that don't remember, or those that might not have been here, the Census PSAP is our opportunity to, that happens once a decade, to adjust primarily the census tract boundaries, and then a little bit smaller level, the census block group boundaries. These boundaries are used for numerous reasons, well beyond transportation and transportation planning for sure. These boundaries Once again, we only get one shot every 10 years to do that, and now's our shot. KIPTA has been designated by the Census Bureau to coordinate this regionally. In Kentucky and then Indiana, that designation was given to River Hills Economic Development District, and so we've kind of taken most of that role, or not from them, but we've been working with them to make sure that these boundaries are adjusted consistently region-wide. Okay, so just as a reminder, there is a census process for adjusting your municipal boundary when you annex or whatnot. This isn't it, so it's not this. This doesn't have any impact on zip codes, and I've been telling people it has no impact on school districts and legislative districts, and I guess we got reminded a couple times that, yeah, some agencies, school districts, communities could use these as building blocks if they so chose to do so to build these other things, but certainly things like that are not that was not our intention. If you all want to use them for that, then go ahead. I guess it would be one way to look at it. To do, magisterial districts or something within the county. So this is what we started with. We started with, numerous blocks, block groups, tracts, these things called CCDs and CDPs. I'll tell you what those are in a second if you don't remember. The blocks, we started with 24,000 blocks, and a block is created anytime a street intersects a street, of course. But it's also created anytime a street or a waterway or a power line or a municipal boundary or lots of other man-made or natural features intersect with each other. So there's 24,000 and growing. That's the number in 2010. It's going to grow as there are new roads and new power lines and what have you. Block groups, there's quite a few fewer, and those are the ones we're impacting. So we started with 800 and some. Tracts, just short of 300. CCDs, census county divisions, those we did not touch, but those are smaller subdivisions of counties. In Kentucky, they're just that. They are kind of not necessarily arbitrary, but they are just ways that counties are sliced up, just for statistical reasons that virtually nobody uses, quite frankly. In Indiana, you notice they don't have them, and that's because in Indiana and various other states, townships take the place of a CCD. A CDP is a census-designated place. These are places that you get statistical data on as if it were a city. Okay? So we only made adjustments to one CDP region-wide. There are 8 of them region-wide, and that was a slight adjustment to the Buckner CDP in Oldham County, extended it effectively to the north of maybe the existing development. Is that fair? So there's only been one adjustment to those. For the most part, a lot of discussion in our interactions has been, what's a CDP? Does it really matter? Do we need to change it? And there's not really a good answer. We can live with them or without them, frankly. But again, it's just so you get data for a place that's not a city, as if it were a city data-wise. You still get it on the other geographies. Okay? So here's our census tracts and kind of how they've evolved. Okay? So again, we started with just under 300. The Census Bureau proposed a series of boundaries for the whole country, this region included, and those changes resulted in 28 additional tracts region-wide, 9-county region, most of which were in Jefferson County. As you can see, there's few changes in that middle column there, the light blue, I guess. 26 out of the 28 net changes, net increase was in Jefferson County. And again, when you add tracts, you're splitting tracts. You're splitting existing tracts. You're not making new areas. You're just splitting existing tracts because these have maximum population thresholds. So KIPTA, in conjunction with the local planning partners in this room for the most part, so appreciate everybody's help in this room for sure. That local process, when we took an opportunity to review what the census did and to make adjustments on our own, we added 5 more. Okay? 2 of which were in Bullitt County, where we split 2 Bullitt County tracts. We had a net decrease in Jefferson County of 1. I think that was one that was combining in 2 locations and adding 1 more. So we added 1, then we took 2 away by combining them. Okay, so that's how we got the -1 there. Oldham County, we made a split near the in southwest Oldham County, I'd say near the Glen Oak subdivision. Clark County, we added 2, One was a split along the new I-265 corridor, which was not a boundary before because it didn't exist in the eastern Clark County. And the other one was when the Census Bureau said, let's combine them. And we said, why'd you want to combine them? It doesn't make sense to combine them. So we, in conjunction with the folks in Clarksville, said that doesn't make sense. Let's re-split them. Floyd County, no changes on the tracks. Shelby County, there was one additional track that we thought made a lot of sense to do in a growing portion of the county. Block groups, it's a similar story. Census Bureau added 48, it looks like, in their review. We added 66 more. And again, the lion's share of that is in Jefferson County. And I'll show you an example of where we added a whole lot in Jefferson County. So that's inflated a little bit, perhaps. But for the most part, a lot of these where we split them up further, where they might fit for our TAZs. You may remember me speaking last time about how these block groups are going to be our TAZs of the future because the Census Bureau won't allow us to make our own TAZs in the future. And so a lot of those changes were to make them more compact, yet maintaining the population thresholds that are required. Several counties, Henry, Spencer, Trimble, there are no changes. Okay, so there are only changes in 6 of the 9 counties. There are only changes that KIPTA in the local communities have proposed. That is. So the changes were numerous, some of which were in those numbers, some of them weren't. So I'm going to try to summarize a little bit about what we did, just to give you a little bit of perspective. We did maintain with track consistencies, those census tracts. We can't really change those unless we split them, okay? And so we didn't do anything that would impact those, with perhaps one exception. That was in Louisville Metro, where they use groups of census tracts to create what they've called market areas for the comprehensive plan update. I believe that was the origin of it. And so we maintained those boundaries as well. So we not only maintain the track consistency, we maintain their market area consistency. Most of the other changes, the changes to the block groups, we were just cleaning up some boundaries. It might follow along, this is not the example, but it might follow along a street, the block group boundary in the pink, and it might go east, and it might go south, and it might go west and south again. Something that we may have done, and what I mean by that, we may have made it consistent along a single street. Not sure why and how it got the other way in the past, but those are the types of changes we did, or a good example of the change that we did. We did try to make them compatible with our TAZs. That was a bit of a problem because all of the minimum thresholds on the block groups are related to resident population. Our TAZs, oftentimes, like in this area we're sitting at right now, nobody lives here, virtually nobody lives here, but lots of people work here. So this block group is relatively large because you have to achieve a minimum population threshold. So we'll figure something out with our TAZs, down the road here in a few years. Basically, we'll split that block group up for our modeling purpose. The local input. We made numerous changes when we met in each and every county, okay? So we are very appreciative of that. These were, back and forth. We made changes on the fly. We took our show on the road. So we do appreciate your all's help in that process. It was informative and helpful to this process. And then the last thing is you see special use areas. An example of a special use area is the top of this screen right here. And I mentioned earlier how in Jefferson County there were so many additional block groups. About a dozen, 15 of them are the Ohio River. Okay, so this is downtown Louisville, the CBD, downtown Louisville. Here's the Kennedy interchange right here. The blue line right here is Ninth Street, which happens to be the tract boundary of let's call it the CBD census tract. It goes as far south, it goes just south of Broadway to, I think it's York Street. That tract in particular, about half of the area of that tract is water, is the Ohio River. So we said in the new rules of the part of the census PSAP process, you can create these areas called special use areas where you don't have any population, so you don't really get the demographic data that you might get from this. And so the river is a great example of it. Other examples are the airport, Fort Knox, I think Shawnee Park is one, a couple others. I think there's a couple other, River Ridge over in Clark County. So we don't have hardly any. The prison, yeah. So the prison presented a different issue. The prison issues, both in downtown Louisville. It'd be right here. 976 people live in 685 housing units here. Typically, you see about 2.5 average, 2.5 people per house. Well, there's not a whole lot of actual housing units. Well, there's 685 there, I suppose, in condos and other areas in downtown. but the prison downtown Louisville is in there. The jail is down there in that block group, if I'm not mistaken. So you get some quirky things going on there. Out in LaGrange, out in Oldham County, it's even skewed further. So there is special consideration for those areas that we had to do, where we didn't meet the minimums or we exceeded the maximums, whatever the case might be. So the schedule. So right now we've wrapped up, I guess, the one with the check mark there. We've met with each and every county. We've got the boundaries. We've got a layer that we will ultimately submit to the Census Bureau. We will be seeking approval, in this case, from the KIPTA Board of Directors, since it's a regional outside the MPO boundaries. So there's no action being requested today. Starting at the beginning of next year, there's a verification phase where we will receive the boundaries back. The Census Bureau will check the boundaries that we submit to them, and we will say, yeah, it looks good, that's what we sent, or something along to that effect. And then next April, I guess, is when the census, is we all fill out our forms and tell everybody where we live and how many people we have. That's all I have. Be happy to answer any questions. If you want to, send me an email or give me a call. We can talk about any of the local changes. We can do it after the meeting if you want to, but they were numerous, so appreciate your all's time.
Thanks, Andy. Anybody got any questions about the census information? Or I know most everybody met with them to go over their census information, so probably don't have any.
All right.
Thanks again. Freight Advisory Committee, Elizabeth.
Hello. I'm here to talk about freight again. I want to bring to you all the idea of creating a freight advisory committee. Now that the regional freight mobility study is completed, there was a recommendation in there to form this committee. And also just for our planning purposes, continuing that conversation and knowing that there's more work to do with data and reaching out to freight stakeholders in our area. So to have a standing long-term committee to carry forth that mission. And so I created just a little information sheet on what this committee might look like. Pass that over there. So who might be on this? Volunteers from this committee, the TTCC. Anyone from the focused outreach list that we have from the study. These are freight stakeholders that either responded to phone calls from our consultant or showed up to the listening session and indicated their interest in being on some kind of committee with us. And then other participants that the Freight Advisory Committee deemed appropriate to be there. And I would like to mention that this would be an official TTCC subcommittee. So what would this committee do? I kind of foresee 3 anticipated outcomes based on dialogue, reaching out to freight stakeholders and public entities in our area, and then data, but assessing what we currently have, what other data sources might we want to look at when we're conducting our planning process, and then third, reviewing the projects and components of freight in our Metropolitan Transportation Plan and any of our other planning activities and documents. So I'm not asking for action today, but I foresee action next month maybe, and then a kickoff meeting, getting this committee started in late summer of this year.
Elizabeth, it would be helpful to know if any TTCC members are interested in being on this committee. You remember we did get the name of the group, but it was a Freight Advisory Group,
Working Group.
Yeah.
Freight Study Group. Those of you that were on that group may want to consider staying with this. It sounds like quarterly meetings.
I would see no more than quarterly, maybe twice a year, just depending on what was going on.
I think the helpful part of it is any of us that know basically even people who use the freight system in our communities. And when I started thinking about it in Oldham County, there were a lot more than I had originally kind of even imagined until I was asked, well, who do we reach out to? So
Yeah.
it's helpful to have local folks on this committee. I'll go ahead and volunteer to be on that committee. If there's anybody else that's ready to say they'd be on it, I'd appreciate it.
And you can always email me later too. And I'll send this out to all TTCC members, the little flyer, to gauge more interest. So.
Okay. And again, I'll ask Jeffersonville and New Albany to participate. We have Southern Indiana. Anybody else at this point? If not, you're going to come back to us next month?
Yes, to officially.
So you'll still have a chance to volunteer. Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you all very much. And let me know if you have any other comments or ideas about what this committee can do to help KIPTA and the entire region. Thanks.
Okay, there's no other agenda items. Any other business to come before the TTCC? The only thing I have is a lot of us knew and or worked with Louise Allen. I don't know if you've all heard that she passed away a couple days ago, and it was kind of a shock to everybody. I don't know what the arrangements are at this point. I haven't really heard, but certainly keep her and her family in your thoughts and prayers. There's no other business, so I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Second, unanimous approval to leave. Thank you.